Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in for another ATP Ride Report webinar session. My name is Ashley Pallon. I oversee airline and corporate partnerships at ATP. And today, I am so excited. We're going to be talking about a clear path to United through the Aviate program. And so joining us today, we have Sue McGrath. She is the Aviate Pilot Recruiter at United. So she's going to discuss with us the Aviate Pilot program. So Sue, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
So for all of our viewers that have tuned in before, you do know your microphones will be muted for the duration of this session. And if you need to chat with us, you can do so in that lower right-hand corner. And if you have questions for Sue, go ahead and place them in that designated Q&A box, and we'll get to them at a later point in our session. So for this week's poll, we just want to find out how many of you might already be affiliated with Aviate, if you have an application in the queue, or if you're perhaps here just to get some more information. So we're going to go ahead and launch that polling. So just to share those results, everyone that voted was just getting started and liking to hear more information about the program. So that's awesome. That helps us know a little bit more about our audience. And I just want to once again say thank you so much for joining us today, Sue. We're really excited to have you here. I'm going to go ahead and get our presentation launched. And while I do, Sue, if you could please just give us a little bit of overview about you and how long you've been with United.
Yeah. Terrific. Thank you, Ashley. And so United Airlines launched the Aviate program back in the fall of last year. And as part of the development of that program, I started in January as one of the Aviate Pilot Recruiters for the Aviate program. I know the commitment and the financial resources, time, energy, and passion that goes into training for a pilot. I have a daughter who just recently completed her commercial. And so I was really passionate about helping individuals figure out how do they develop their career from there. I have a background of over 10+ years of recruiting experience, and with another airline as well as with other industries, and I look forward to helping each of you decide, what path is right for you and give you the information that you need to make that decision.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share all of your insight with us. So thank you. I know that one of the things that we had discussed a little bit earlier today, and you mentioned, especially with pilots starting out, was just how much Aviate opens doors. So I'll let you expand on that.
Yes. So, you hear a lot in the industry about how do I get started? Where do I go? What do I do? And you hear a lot about, networking. And so I like to call it opening doors. You don't know what you don't know. You may be coming from a family in which aviation is part of your family and you have people you can rely on. You may be like my daughter, starting out, interested in the industry and having no idea, kind of what path to take. And so my recommendation to you, and I'm going to first of all applaud each of you that are participating today, because you're opening a door. You're opening a door to finding out what the possibilities might be for you. And so on a real positive note, I just want to say that's exactly what you need to be doing right now. I've been talking with individuals who are currently in training for ATP over the last couple of weeks, and with each one of them, I say the best advice is continue to open as many doors as you can in this industry. And so welcome today. We're going to share some information with you about Aviate, which is a program that opens the door to possibilities at United.
Perfect. Well, with that, and our discussion today being a clear path to United, can you just to start talk a little bit about the overview of the program and why United chose to establish a program that really does allow for the opportunity to start that recruitment process at a very early stage in someone's training?
Absolutely. So the Aviate program was really established as an answer to the current need for pilots. And so it may seem right now that there's a question mark about the viability and need for pilots. And I can't tell you that as an essential business, there's an even greater need down the road in the future for pilots. Pre-coronavirus, we were at United talking about hiring 10,000 pilots in the next 10 years. And although that number may change and the timeline may change, we know that based on the retirement alone of our pilots and their current age, as well as other pilots in the industry, that there's going to continue to be a demand for pilots. And so we were looking at a terrific way to create that path for individuals to use their passion, to put their passion and their commitment directly toward a career with United.
Perfect.
Some of the benefits of the Aviate program is that allows individuals to reach United sooner, in that it creates that clear path. And we'll talk a little bit more later about the specifics to the interview process, the application process and such, but it does provide that path for individuals to United.
Awesome. And so with that being said, can you talk about some of the different entry points where a candidate is able to gain entry and apply to the program?
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley. As Ashley mentioned, that in the past it used to be that pilots would wait until they had achieved all of their required minimums in order to apply to United. And we recognized that we could have an opportunity to partner with individuals much sooner in the process, so that we can begin to provide training, leadership training, and character building and development and career development to individuals through that whole path. And so there are 5 entry points that we have created through the Aviate program to joining United Airlines. And many of you are at that very earliest opportunity to gain admission to Aviate, and that's by applying through one of our Aviate Flight School partners like ATP. And so not only do we have opportunities to apply through the flight training partners, but then further down your path, we have opportunities to apply with one of our Part 135 partners and then our UAX partners. So the key message here is that those of you who've opened this door early in the process will see that there are opportunities as current as now for you to start to get involved.
Perfect, thank you. And with that, can you just expand a little bit on some of the requirements and criteria to enter Aviate under the professional flight training entry point?
Yeah, so many of you who are with ATP, you're already there. So you are in a unique place, blessed to be with one of our current Aviate partners. And so the criteria for applying to the Aviate program is that you hold a minimum of a private pilot certificate, and that you be pursuing your commercial license or your flight instructor licenses, that you hold the FAA Class 1 or Class 2 medical certificate, that you be in good standing with ATP, and that you have a minimum of a high school diploma or GED equivalent. Now, I have gotten a lot of questions about those criteria, and I will tell you that particularly the last one is a minimum requirement. For the transition to United Airlines, it's important to note that it is highly preferred that you have a college degree. To apply to Aviate, though, you can do that at a much earlier stage.
Thank you. And then we do also have some of our flight instructors that are tuning in. So for them, this is also, you're also able to apply as a flight instructor. So just if you have already completed your training and you're instructing with us, that is an additional opportunity also to apply. And so what are some of the benefits? We talked a little bit about the overview of the program, but as far as the program's benefits, can you talk about what a pilot can receive once they join Aviate?
Absolutely. So some of the key elements that we talked about, the importance of networking and the importance of relationships. And United Airlines is all about connecting with people. And so Aviate gives us the opportunity to connect with aspiring pilots and to provide development and coaching and different events. So we pair each Aviate participant with a pilot, United pilot mentor that is able to be side by side with you along the process as you're building your flight hours. We also provide exposure to some of our leadership training internally so that you can have a really good understanding of what's required to be at United, the type of character we're looking for, and the type of culture that we have. The mentorship is key to the program. Not only will you have the opportunity to pair with one of our coaches, but with other Aviate participants.
And then something that's not on here that we discussed a little bit prior to starting this call that was really important is the FIFO list. Can you talk about that and some of the benefits of being on top of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason that Aviate creates a clear path, and we can talk through this when we get to some of the interview stage, is that when you interview with United Airlines for the Aviate program, once it's determined that you've been successfully accepted into the program, Aviate assigns a FIFO number, a first in, first out number to you, so that as you continue to build flight hours towards your goal of becoming a flight officer for United Airlines, you have kind of a reserved spot waiting for you, kind of a priority spot, so that when the class select, when you are eligible to transition to United Airlines, you are able to do so based on that priority number.
Thank you. And with, we talked about this obviously in the last slide, with this development, can you just speak to some of the areas of coaching that is received and why United really strives to engage with Aviate pilots and cultivate that professional development at a very early stage in a career?
Yeah, well, United's culture is something that we work at on every given day, and so we want to make sure that anyone who's choosing to be with United for a career, and it could be a very long career, that you understand what kind of leadership model we have, what our expectations are, that you understand how important diversity and inclusion are to us, and so we provide training in some of those core principles, including also our core 4 leadership training. We feel it's important that we can share, we have some of the best trainers in the industry, and so we also can share key functional skills, like some training on crew resource management, customer interactions, what our expectations are for flying and flight hours, and help you understand what it's like to be a pilot for United Airlines. And also we give you exposure to our many departments at United Airlines so that you can begin to understand our business prior to even making that transition.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And sorry, I'm just going on mute because it is storming where I am, and I don't know if you can hear that in the background, and I don't want that noise to be drowning out all the great information that Sue has for you. So we have discussed, obviously, why Aviate, but let's talk also about why United. So if you can maybe just expand upon the core 4 values that you have, and I'm seeing all of these, that's obviously listed at the top of the slide, but also I do want to make sure that we talk about some of the different groups that you have that really strive to have that inclusive culture and United's involvement in those groups.
Sure, absolutely. So as Ashley mentioned at the top, you'll see our core 4, which really drives everything that we do. Our core 4 values are safety, caring, excuse me, dependability, and efficiency. And so that drives all of our decision making. It drives our business and how we treat one another. And so that is some of the character building that you will see established at United, and you'll have exposure to. We also have many, many programs that help us in developing and enriching our organization and our culture through the various business resource groups that United Airlines offers to its employees. So we have programs that our executive leadership team help lead and participate and contribute to for all different populations within the company, so we get to know one another, like our multi-outreach program, our multicultural groups, our veterans groups, our women's groups, our next gen groups, and these groups are broadly available to everyone who works with United, and gives us the opportunity to begin to understand one another, work with one another, and create deep connections.
Amazing. And we do, on our next slide, also have some photos that really just highlight the spirit of United. So can you talk a little bit about maybe what events these came from, and are they ones that United has either hosted or participated in?
Absolutely. It seems like just yesterday that on 1st, before we all were required to stay at home, that I jumped into Lake Michigan for our polar plunge, which benefited Special Olympics. United Airlines is very actively involved in our community. And so in all of our communities, whether it be through events like our polar plunge for Special Olympics, whether it be our Christmas flight to the North Pole for children who have special needs. Across the board, we have all different types of opportunities at all different locations for our members, our employees to get involved. We also, for those of you who have an interest in the environment, we have an environmental commitment, an initiative to Eco Skies, which United Airlines was the first airline in the US to commit to a 50% reduction in emissions by 2050. So we're doing a lot to serve our communities, to participate in our communities, which results in the strong bonds that we have with one another.
Amazing. So we've talked about United as a company and some of its culture. We've talked about Aviate and the entry point. Now let's talk about the application process. So after an applicant, obviously step 1 is to meet all of the eligibility requirements, but step 2 is to get that application submitted. After an applicant submits an application, how long does it typically take for them to receive a response from United?
Okay, pre-coronavirus, we were inviting individuals to interviews within a month to 2 months of that application being successfully submitted. Typically what we would do is send out an invitation that says you've been invited to an interview and you have within 6 months to actually complete that interview. So you have some time to prepare and choose a date that works for you. But you know, right now, unfortunately, it is not safe for us to be doing any interviewing, so we're not currently doing interviewing. We are still accepting applications. And so the good news is that most of you are in a place and in a position right now, given your relationship with ATP and the fact that you're training there, to be able to apply and to be in the queue for future interviews.
Thank you. And with steps 3 and 4, we obviously see that that's building flight hours, flying with an express partner, United Express partners. So what are some of the requirements or the service minimums that a pilot must obtain before taking the next step on to either United Express or to United?
Okay, so typically we have a commitment for those that are instructing, that go on to instructing, that you need to be instructing for 750 flight hours or 18 months with your group. So if you continue to fly if you continue to instruct with ATP, that would be the minimum requirement before you can move on to one of our United Express carriers.
Perfect. And then what about the time and commitment at a United Express?
Okay, there are 2 different scenarios, very well spelled out on our website, but typically it's a 24-month, 2,000 flight hours, unless you've been assigned to or been promoted to captain, and there's some other criteria there.
And then something that I think is important to note on this, because it's a question that I know gets asked a lot, is your Aviate interview does guarantee that you won't need to complete an additional structured interview when transitioning from the United Express partner to United Airlines, but that does not mean that you still have to complete an interview with the United Express partner. So we just want to make sure.
Exactly.
Perfect. Awesome. Are there any other minimums that must be met as far as transition?
No.
And so now we know how to submit the application, and once it's time to get contacted for an interview, what tools are provided to the applicant to assist them in preparing for the interview?
Okay, so once your application has been received and you've been invited to an interview and select an interview date, we send out a packet of information regarding confirming your interview date and regarding some information on how to prep. So as some of the components of the interview, there's a panel interview, which is tell me about a time when type of interview. And that the best way to prepare is to continue or start now if you haven't, to capturing all of those flight experiences and life experiences that you have that make you you, that help you in your growth into becoming a United pilot. There's a technical interview that we send you information on what the materials would be that will be covered in that, somewhat like preparing for one of your oral exams. And then there is a leadership inventory, which is more of a personality assessment, culture fit that there's no preparation for.
Perfect. Thank you. And can you tell us, after an applicant has completed an interview, how long is the turnaround typically on when they should expect to hear back regarding the outcome?
Okay, typically pre-coronavirus, we were making sure that we got back to candidates in a very quick turnaround. So we send the information and recommendations to our board of review, and then typically within 10 days, they are notified whether they have completed the interview and are successfully accepted into the Aviate program. For those candidates who have been accepted into the Aviate program, that is their final interview with United Airlines for a first officer position. But as you mentioned earlier, Ashley, that is not their final interview for any next steps that they may take.
Perfect. Thank you for that knowledge. Now, all right, so right here we're seeing the website where anyone that's interested is able to apply. What advice or tips would you provide to applicants to help them prepare for an interview?
As far as preparation, as I mentioned, we will send you information on the technical assessment, and trust that you will be well prepared for that based on your training at ATP and the information that's presented to you for preparing. As far as for the panel interview, as I mentioned, I feel like the best advice is to just know who you are, make sure you're capturing those stories, those experiences that have helped you master the skills that you have, and have helped you become the person that you are.
And then for those who will be applying under that experience build entry point, which it seems like a lot of our viewers today were in that category, as a student training with a partner flight school, is there any additional experience that you would maybe recommend they seek out aside from just the requirement of having a private pilot's license to prepare them for the interview?
I'm a firm believer, and it's not about bullet points on a resume. It's about experiences that you participate in your life that make you who you are. So my recommendation, particularly during this time during coronavirus, if you're not flying as much, maybe there's a neighbor that you're helping out to get them through this. Maybe you're doing a side job. Maybe you're volunteering in your community, and you can demonstrate that that's important to you, like it is to most of us at United Airlines. So whatever you're doing, that you're engaged and that you're learning and growing from it, those are stories that are going to be worth sharing in an interview.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, with that, we will move on to our viewer Q&A section. Before we do launch those, I do just want to say thank you so much to Sue for joining us today. We'll go ahead and we're going to exit this presentation and get started on all of our viewer Q&A. So we did actually receive quite a few of them via email beforehand. So our first one comes to us from Anderson. He actually just completed training with us in Daytona Beach. So congratulations on completing training, Anderson. And he was wondering, does United Aviate consider previous non-aviation professional experience when choosing candidates?
Not as part of the experience that you gain from flying, wherever it might be, might contribute to your responses in an interview, but we don't necessarily consider that as part of the eligibility. The eligibility requirements are as we discussed earlier.
Okay. And he also wanted to know, how can applicants stand out on paper when many do have the same flight training and experience?
Well, and I would say that is one of the other key benefits of the Aviate program. As long as you're meeting those minimum eligibility requirements and you're in good standing with ATP and you have a clean record, you're likely to get that interview. And so you're not competing on paper as you would our traditional hiring process. We want to open that door and welcome everyone to come in to have that interview.
Perfect. And then his third and final question was, can you talk about some of the skills that United prioritizes when considering candidates?
Well, anything that relates to character, being able to think creatively, somebody who fosters teamwork, has great communication skills, particularly because of our CRM and how important that is to us. Communication is also key.
Perfect. And I know that you actually Aviate participated yesterday in a EAA also webinar session just talking about the future of aviation. And I know that something that was mentioned on that also, Anderson, that you might want to think about is just the ability to multitask. That was also one that was listed very highly. We also received another email question from Jeremy beforehand. He's actually working on finishing his private pilot's license with us out of Oakland. And he would just like to know, is there an age limit to apply?
We spoke about that on the EAA yesterday. Anybody who is putting in the time and energy and is pursuing this, there is not an age limit. So we talked about, I believe, it's the opportunity is uncapped for anyone.
Thank you. And then we did have, moving on to some of our viewer Q&A, do you prioritize a degree that was obtained at a college physically on site versus online?
As far as the application process and the interview process, as I mentioned, you need a minimum of a high school degree or GED to apply to Aviate. You will need that college degree to transition if you're accepted into the Aviate program.
But it doesn't matter if it was obtained online versus on a physical campus?
I'm not sure that we've necessarily addressed
broken
that.
It down that way?
I believe that as long as you have that bachelor's degree.
Perfect. All right. And then, okay. Let's see, is there a path for a pilot to get into management at United?
Many of our pilots, in fact, many of our Aviate coaches and recruiters, many of our United coaches and recruiters for the Aviate program are actually also pilots who are actively flying. And so there are many opportunities for our pilots to do additional jobs. We have some who are very actively involved in like electronic flight bag and development and implementation of that. Many who are involved in training, which is why we feel so confident that we have some of the best training in the industry. There are a lot of opportunities beyond just being in the cockpit.
Okay. Perfect. And Jordan would like to know, he has, I guess, 2 associate degrees in aviation-related fields. He's an A&P, and he just wonders if maybe that's something that would be a deal breaker since it's not a bachelor's, or is there some room for consideration?
Yeah, it's pretty highly preferred that you have that bachelor's degree. Only very few exceptions to that. So I would encourage, while you're building your flight hours, for him to continue to look at that.
Perfect. And then do you have any statistics on how many pilots are typically, what the recruitment rate would be from Aviate versus from off the street?
Yeah, I do not at this time. The Aviate program is still relatively new. And as I mentioned, pre-coronavirus, the numbers might be a little bit different than now. And so we do know that we're on the bottom of the bell curve for the United Airline pilots' retirement, and that's going to continue to increase. On average, right now, we have about 400 plus pilots retiring each year. By 2028, that number will be closer to the 600, 700s. And so we will be pulling from several different areas for our hiring.
Okay. Perfect. And then Adam was asking this, and Adam, go ahead and feel free to type to us in chat if this is not what you were referring to, but he was saying, are the minimums whichever occurs first for some of the service minimums?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
For like 750 hours versus 18
no,
months.
And. Mm-hmm.
And then it looks like someone was asking this, so it looks like they are just starting with us and they're a little bit on the younger end. What are United's requirements as far as restricted? Maybe they're building time pretty quickly, the restricted ATP due to age.
I'm not sure I have the answer to that, but we can get back to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And chances are, if you're just starting out now, it'll take you a little bit of time to get there to United as well.
Yeah, yeah, it'll take some time.
Perfect. Can you, Colin, I don't know that this would be one for Sue. He was asking about the hiring process for Express partners, but since Sue represents Aviate, that would be a question that would be more for whoever you'd be applying to directly, whichever Express partner you would select. And then Chris, at this point, I think that Sue has mentioned she doesn't want to speculate as far as a timeline. The best thing that we are all doing is we are checking those passenger numbers every day. We are looking at upcoming forecasts. Hopefully we have a vaccine soon, and those are the factors that will really influence when hiring is able to resume. And Noelle would like to know if it matters what field your degree is in.
It does not matter what field you're in, as long as you have the bachelor's degree.
Perfect. And Tyler would like to know, so going back to the different entry points, do you have to build hours through one of the regional partners, or are you able to look outside those options as well? So maybe he's talking about, would you be able to build time through maybe a Part 135 partner in lieu of one of the United Express partners?
Sure, of course. And Part 135 operators is another place that you can absolutely build hours. As part of the commitment that we look for in return to the coaching and mentoring and the program that we have to offer is that once accepted into the Aviate program, although you have a choice in which direction you go, whether it's with one of our Part 135 operators, whether it's instructing, in the choice of the many UAX carriers that we work with, we do ask that individuals can stay within the ecosystem, the Aviate ecosystem. So there is choice in that. We know that and recognize that that may be a little bit more challenging here in the near future. And so we are adjusting our guidelines as to, if somebody's not able to find something within the ecosystem at this time, there's some guidelines to what that means and how we can keep you as part of the Aviate program.
Perfect. And then is there any comparison with timeline as far as getting to United through Aviate as opposed to going through maybe other non-affiliated, non-United Express regional partners?
Sure. As I mentioned, there's always the possibility to apply to United Airlines through our traditional path once you have met all the eligibility requirements to become a first officer. The big difference is going to be that FIFO number and the class start date and the timeline that it might take to get to United.
It looks like we have someone on here that is doing some or has some experience in rotor aircraft. So must the flight hours be all fixed wing, or what does United consider as far as rotary wing towards total time?
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have that detailed information.
Okay. No problem. And then, guys, we're seeing a couple questions about tuition reimbursement. And so United Aviate is the program for United. Tuition reimbursement would be affiliated with a specific regional airline partners. So just to give you guys a quick answer on why we're not going to go over those. And Adam would like to know how to, is the Aviate application, after you go to unitedaviate.com, do you go through airline apps to submit the application?
Yes, absolutely. And then once you do that, you'll receive another email from United with a little, like a Becoming United assessment. And so once you complete those and your application's been accepted, you would get an email confirming that your application is complete.
Perfect. And then for the day of the interview, can you talk about how long that day typically is, and maybe the order of it, and the possible future of locations?
Sure. The interview process is, as I mentioned, there's 3 components to it. There's the panel interview, the technical interview, and then the leadership inventory. Typically, in total, that takes about 3 hours. We try to, stack those back to back, where you're meeting with individuals one after another. And so, and typically the interviews are either at our Denver Flight Training Center or at Willis Tower in Chicago.
Okay, perfect. And how many people might someone expect to have that are their interview panelists when they arrive?
Typically, the panel interview is with one of the pilot recruiters like myself and one of our United pilots. The technical interview is typically with one or two of our United pilots, and then the inventory is just a computer inventory.
And Brian, someone would like to know, what advice would you have to someone with lower hours pursuing, maybe not just about Aviate, but in general, pursuing a private pilot's license at this time?
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, the best advice that I can give anyone is to make sure you're journaling and keeping track of some of those stories, some of the challenging flights that maybe you've had and what you've learned from them. Maybe even if it's a check ride that's been a failed check ride. What did you obtain? What did you learn from that experience? What happened, etc. So I really say make sure you're capturing and you understand some self-awareness about who you are and what's helped you to get to where you've gotten.
Perfect. And if we could just go over again for the instruction phase. So if someone is applying as an instructor, the service minimums for being affiliated with a partner school.
Well, once you're an instructor, as long as you've been accepted or you've accepted an offer to be an instructor, you can apply for Aviate.
But then as far as the duration that you would need to be instructing, it's 750 hours or 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had just missed that on it. And then someone would like to know, I'm going through college with the aim to entering flight school later because I didn't put a lot of effort into the degree program concentration because it couldn't relate to what they were learning. Is performance in the degree program considered, or is it merely a prerequisite? So I think they're asking about maybe they realized partway through the degree that this wasn't really what they wanted to pursue as far as maybe GPA and how that is categorized in the interview process.
Okay. If applying through ATP, there obviously college is not a requirement. We talked about that's not a minimum eligibility requirement, though typically we are looking for a GPA of 3.0 if you're applying through our traditional path or through our university path.
Okay, perfect. And do Aviate participants receive any advantages in relation to hiring with your regional partners?
They do not. So as of right now, we do have terrific partnerships with all of our Aviate partners. I tell people that if I were applying to one of the United partners and I had Aviate on my resume and I had that experience of interviewing and being accepted at United, the confidence, the experiences shared, I think would carry a long way.
Perfect. And then we're getting a lot of questions about a degree and when it's required. So depending on when you enter.
That degree is required at the time that you are ready to transition to United Airlines.
And can you just talk about maybe some of the different criteria as far as the partnerships that you have? You've selected those because with either universities, with flight schools, with the 135 operators, due to I'm assuming one of the areas is the ability to rapidly in all of those environments progress and meet minimums to ultimately be a pilot at United Airlines, correct?
Yeah, and it's absolutely the caliber and the character of the partners that we've selected.
And we're getting a lot more questions about just additional advice, so they are eager to hear, and any advice that you have to be successful in that application phase, in that interview. Is there any advice you have on a resume that are things that you've maybe seen in past that stand out as areas that need to be on there, areas that maybe you see a lot of pilots list on there that aren't so pertinent to the resume versus the interview?
Right, as we talked about, it's all about your experience and who you are as an individual. So if volunteer, and how that fits with United's culture. So, I encourage you to spend some time on United's website. You can see, follow us on many social media channels and see what we're about and see how that resonates with you and how you might feel you're a fit for United Airlines and why United Airlines would be a choice for you. And so continue to develop those character building, the leadership traits, caring about your community, etc.
Perfect. And following up with that, Vincent's questions, he said, "Good afternoon, Sue. If you could put into your own words, what makes United stand out as a desirable company to work for? Why is it who you chose, company culture, etc.? Thank you for all of your insights."
You're very welcome. My response to that is that I grew up on the southeast side of Chicago, and so I grew up with United Airlines as my hometown airline, and having the opportunity to have flown United Airlines and have met so many of the wonderful people that build the culture, I really desperately wanted to be a part of the group, and I have found that the people and the culture of caring and the focus on safety is unprecedented.
And someone else would like to know the benefit of doing the Aviate program as opposed to just applying to United Express without going through Aviate.
Sure. I think we've already focused on a couple of these things. One would be the FIFO number. So if you apply to Aviate and you're accepted into the program, you have a FIFO number, priority number, that's going to carry with you while you're building your flight hours to becoming a United First Officer. So that will be, having that gives you some priority to waiting until later in your career to apply to United. Another key component is the fact that the eligibility requirements are slightly different if you're applying through Aviate than if you're applying directly.
And Jordan would like to know, as a recruiter, how much weight does an applicant that has previous professional experience outside of the aviation industry hold? So maybe somebody who owned a business and is pursuing this as a second career.
Great question, because there are a lot of career changers. There are a lot of people like myself who've been in other industries, and I think your experiences will always help shape how you do in an interview. So if you can draw from other experiences that you've had, talk about team building, talk about communications skills, multitasking, and be able to draw on some of those experiences, that's always going to be valuable.
And Jimmy would like to know, do you recommend applying as early as possible once you complete your private? Would it be beneficial to get more experience and wait till you're a flight instructor? So we'll go over that again.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely great question. And I would say that's a very individual decision. It has a lot to do with how you feel, how well you feel you would be prepared to deliver and respond to questions about experiences. So I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of individuals in the last few months while we are not interviewing, suggesting that even applying now, since we're not interviewing, that gives you time to continue to build experiences prior to ever having the interview. But you have to know for yourself whether or not you have the preparation skills and the communication skills and the desire to follow through with that interview.
And I know that something that is that had been shared on past some of the town hall calls that you guys have done was just to make sure that you're practicing. Advice that was given was once you do get scheduled for an interview, find a buddy, find a flight instructor, another student to practice with, and gain that experience not only as the interviewee but the interviewer, and you kind of get to see another side of it and see maybe just mannerisms and things that are nonverbal communication that you wouldn't even realize in an interview as coming off a certain way, but through switching the roles, you get to experience that.
Yeah, that preparation is key, right?
And so we have someone that's currently a flight attendant with United thinking about pursuing a pilot career. They're asking, should they try to find a flight school now or hear more about the already part of United option on the Aviate website that's coming soon?
Right. So the employee program is in the process of being developed. I can't give you a timeline on when that will be. So that's going to be an individual choice as to whether that's something that you want to get started now with one of our Aviate partners or you want to wait. I do not have a timeline and can't speculate on when that will, be coming.
So we are getting, I'm just going to address these as a group so we can close out some of these questions because guys, right now with everything that's going on with coronavirus, there's some things that are speculation if we were to answer. So the average time, for example, from the United Express to United, that will be determined once hiring resumes. But we're not going to answer ones that we don't have the answers to that really are speculation at this point. And what common errors do you see on an application that could potentially be avoided?
Well, I don't process the actual applications, but I know that when we have individuals come in, making sure that their flight hours are updated, sometimes the date of their medical certificate is expired. So anything like that, making sure that there's a fine attention to detail on dates, making sure that, like I said, if there's any kind of failed check rides or anything like that, that it's documented ahead of time, and that you're just taking accountability for that, so we can discuss what you learned from those experiences. I think those are some of the things that when you come in for an interview, we do a final check on all of that information and ask you to have all of that updated. So those would be some things to be looking to.
Perfect. Thank you. And Chris is asking, I think, Chris, I can take this one. So can a person take advantage of Aviate and one of the Express Cadet programs at the same time? And so the answer to that is yes. You could be part of Aviate, and then you could also explore opportunities which you mentioned, for example, the Mesa Cadet program. That is a United Aviate partner. So in doing so, you were really being very proactive in assuring your future and every step of succession towards becoming a pilot at United. Something else that I think that maybe we must discuss, since we have a lot of viewers that are a little bit on the lower end of experience, is just the portion of the interview, the technical interview, and how maybe to give them some reassurance going in, how that gets a little bit tailored to their current experience level.
Perfect. So as I mentioned earlier, the technical interview, although our interview process is absolutely very standardized, we have tailored the technical interview to match the entry point that you're applying to. So if you are applying as a flight student, you are going to be your technical assessment will be related to those experiences, those expectations of when you're training to become a commercial pilot. And so all the preparation materials will be sent with the packet, will help guide, kind of what that landscape is of which you'll be tested on, very similar to like an oral.
Perfect. And I was just looking at our Facebook Live program, and yeah, it looks like we do have someone. Yes, it is. They're asking about the application. There might be a fee for you for airline apps, but the program itself is free. It's definitely encouraged if you're in one of these partnerships with either a university, with ATP, if you're with a United Express carrier, to go ahead and take advantage of that to really gain the knowledge and experience to secure that pathway and get at the top of that FIFO list. This is a question about seniority if you switch base. Do you lose seniority?
That's too far down the road.
Perfect. And can you maybe just talk about, generally speaking, about some of the things that United Airlines is doing to ensure really that through this time, with everything that's happening with coronavirus, that the crew members are safe, and some of the measures, and knowing that you are so big on culture that your company has done within to really bond together and display that culture?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, our core four, our number one priority is always safety. Safety of our crew, safety of our passengers, and safety across the board. And so you've probably seen in the news, we have partnered with Cleveland Clinic and Clorox Company regarding some HEPA treatment, HEPA filters that we're using and sprays that we're using to make sure that our airplanes are clean. They're likely the cleanest place you can be right now. And so we're putting a lot of effort toward that. That is a key priority for ours. You may have also heard in the news that we're requiring every crew member as well as every passenger to wear a mask. We feel very firmly that that is the best way that we can all contribute to our world, bringing this COVID virus to an end and the spread of it to an end. So we're doing a lot as it relates to the safety and health of our, not only our crew, but our customers as well.
Thank you. And so we do have another question of, as a result of some of the programs that you have you seen an increase in diversity from some of those initiatives, both with women and minority applicants as a result of this program?
Thank you for that question. That is very much a focus of ours, and we absolutely have. It is one of the reasons that one of the drivers of the Aviate program is that we would be able to expand where we're getting our talent from and how early in the stage we are. So we just yesterday announced a partnership with EAA. We're going to be working with students, I believe, from ages 8 to 17 to get them exposed and expose more people to our industry and the opportunities that come with flying. We are very actively involved with Women in Aviation, many of the diverse groups. And as I mentioned earlier, the BRG groups that we have on our within United Airlines are all sponsored by our executive team. So it's a top-down commitment to diversity inclusion as well.
Perfect. And can you talk about some of the different leadership experience that maybe is a really good thing to highlight on an application? So taking leadership positions within possibly a United Express partner.
Yeah, as any place that you can get involved and gain that leadership experience, whether it's within aviation, as a check airman, or in any leadership opportunities that present themselves, not only for the title but for the experience. So sometimes just being present and maybe shadowing others who you feel are good mentors, finding mentors for yourself, and building those leadership skills.
And then can you speak to what you look for as far as involvement in the community through either charities or organizations, and how that corresponds to your values?
Yeah. As I shared, United is involved in many charities, and one of the key programs that we have for employees is that if employees volunteer a certain amount of time, that we will make a donation to their charities. So we don't necessarily, it's unique to every individual what they care about. Whatever it is, we ask you to just give that same passion and drive and commitment to whatever drives you and whatever you feel the needs are in your own community. United has many, you can see on our website, many different companies and charities that we partner with as well.
And not just partner with, there are quite a few that are really pioneered. I think on one of the slides, those were all, when I looked it up, those were all founded by United employees and backed by United.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. And then do you have any advice when someone's completing the application or the interview process, and maybe some areas you see that with regards to the records or paperwork that people should spend extra time ensuring they are correct? Like you mentioned, check ride failures and totaling logbooks, things like that.
Yeah, making sure your logbooks are accurate and complete would be very key. Making sure that your resume that there's an attention to detail, that there aren't typos, and just basic guidelines such as that.
As far as this is something that's still listed on the application, as far as letters of recommendation, is there a specific amount do you recommend? I know this is something that was discussed if anyone was on the EAA call yesterday, but it was a question and I think it's a valid one, so we'll address it here also.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, as we talked about yesterday on our call, we require letters of recommendation at this time, but it's best that they be quality letters of recommendation. We're looking for people who know your skills, whether it be your instructor, whether it be leadership at ATP, that know your motivation and know you as an individual. Sometimes we'll get individuals who send in, 10, 15, 20 letters of recommendations, but there's not much to them. So really focus on the quality of the recommendations and not necessarily just the quantity.
And a couple of last general questions about Aviate. We had someone that asked if there's, so we just want to clarify that you don't have to be at a specific location as far as physical, city to be accepted into this program, because the question was, what locations is the Aviate program located at? I think it was more in regards to region.
Yeah, it's not a location based, right? As long as you're with one of our partners.
And then if accepted into the Aviate program, is it binding?
It is not binding. And I personally would say that we are going to do our very best. We want you to open that door. We want you to step in. We want you to experience who we are as a company, what our culture is about. If we've interviewed you and we have accepted you in the program, we believe that you have everything it takes to become a United First Officer. And we hope that you'll find that this is a place where you'd want to dedicate your career to.
And what advice do you have regarding maybe just some of the decision making for this process, and thinking about the longevity of the end goal, being United Airlines?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I would say the decision points, like right now, are opening that door, deciding at what stage you, if you're interested in a career with United Airlines, at what stage the opportunities present themselves for you to be able to do so. So if you're at ATP right now, for example, that would be an opportunity that may or may not be available to you down the road. So I would say some of the key decision points are really thinking about where you want to be long term. There may be some short-term decisions that if you're not thinking long term, you may miss those opportunities. So think long term, think about which doors you want open, and step through those.
No, that was exactly it. And so in prepping for the interview, just because I know we had a lot of questions about that, what do you recommend as far as taking opportunities now to possibly establish relationships with those mentors, but also to possibly get involved in any of these organizations within United to also help establish those additional mentorships and relationships for opportunity for growth?
Yeah, many of us at United, as you can imagine, are involved in a lot of different organizations. I've mentioned several of them earlier. So I would say whatever groups that you can get involved in within the industry, it may seem like a really big industry, but all of those networks and all connections are important. They're as valuable as you make them. So if you're reaching out, if you're engaging and you're engaged, you'll likely continue to grow as both a pilot and as an individual.
And then are all of the what United Express carriers, can we just go over quickly again, are affiliated with the Aviate program?
Yes, it's Mesa, ExpressJet, Air Wisconsin, and Compass.
And okay, and Commuter, yeah.
I mean Commute Air, I'm sorry, and Commute Air.
Yeah. So perfect, thank you. All right, well guys, it looks like we are approaching our hour. So if anyone has any last minute questions, go ahead and get them in. But before we do let Sue go, I'd just like to let you have the opportunity to give a final piece of advice to our viewers as they embark on their careers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for the time. As I mentioned to you, we're just trying to open opportunities to inform and to give you opportunities to figure out what that path is for you individually. And so if your interest and your heart is calling you to United Airlines, we encourage you to explore our website at unitedaviate.com. If you have any questions, there's an email address on that website, aviate@united.com. We'll be happy to try to answer any more questions that you have. Thank you for your time. Stay connected and stay safe.
Perfect. Well, Sue, thank you so much for providing all of your insight today on the Aviate program with us. And we really appreciate it. We hope that we see a lot of applicants that got their questions answered today. And it looked like a good amount of our viewers were lower time. So hopefully you will start seeing those as applicants into the Aviate program. Just want, again, thank you for all of your insight and for being here. And for everyone that's tuning in, you can find information on future webinars via atpflightschool.com/webinars. And we hope you all have a great weekend and fly safe. Thank you.